Welcome to Inner Swim, a space for anyone called to tune within. If you're intuitive, creative, a deep feeler, earth lover, or a sensitive soul, you'll feel right at home here. I'm Jaylyn, a wellness mentor and yoga teacher supporting women to reconnect with their inner truth, root into their authentic energy, and live in harmony with their nature. So let's pour a tea and dive in. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome everyone and welcome back. In today's episode, we are talking about how the body mirrors our energetic and emotional patterns and can actually reveal to us where we should bring more balance into our lives and into ourselves. So let's dive right in. I invite you, if you can, to close your eyes or just relax into your body for a moment. Maybe taking a deep breath in and out. So welcome. And the intention with this episode is not to cast judgment on the body or on your state of being, because there is no right or wrong. The intention is to invite gentle awareness, a loving awareness. Through awareness is how we bring balance, how we come into balance, how we can take good care of ourselves, and it's how we live a life of yoga or union. So the body as an energetic mirror. Now my background is in yoga and the yogic sciences, and one of the things I love so much about the yoga sciences is that they are holistic. In other words, through the yogic lens, a human being is not separate, but actually an integrated whole. So what that means is the physical body, the emotions, the thoughts, the belief systems, the energy patterns, even our spiritual beliefs are all interconnected. In other words, if the body is doing one thing, it is somehow related to what the emotions are doing, what the belief system is doing, what the energy patterns are doing. And this goes both ways. So we can take a look at how the body is to get a sense of our state of mind, emotions, and energy, and vice versa. Now, for most people, getting a feel for how your body is most tangible, it's easiest to connect to. It's obviously the most physical. But for some, especially highly sensitive persons, we can get a real felt sense for how the energy body is, how our nervous system is, and we can be quite self-aware on our emotions and our thoughts. But for the purposes of this talk, let's stick to this kind of simplified view of the body mirroring our energetic patterns. And when I say energy, let's, for today, let that word include our emotions, our thoughts, and kind of our inner state. So I have a personal lived experience on this topic, and I can think back to 8 years ago when I was way more flexible than I am today. So I'm, at the time of this recording, almost 30 years old, and in my early 20s, I was extremely flexible. Like when I started yoga and when I was practicing 2 hours a day of asana, physical yoga, I was extremely flexible. Looking back, I was actually probably overly flexible. And in hindsight now, so looking back on this time of my life, I can see that my body was very limber but it wasn't quite as strong as it was flexible. And this reflects my energetic state at that time. So at that time, my early 20s, I was overly flexible for other people. I was tending toward people pleasing. I was tending toward empathizing with people in a way that would maybe cause some distress on me. I was absorbing and merging with other people's energies. So when I look back at that time in my life, I can see how my over flexibility and lack of strength in my body actually reflected my energetic state at the time, which was a lack of energetic boundaries, a lack of containment, and often leaking energy out. I was teaching yoga in studios and group classes, and I was giving a lot of my energy and a lot of my emotional self to public spaces and often absorbing with other people's energies. But it wasn't until a few years later that I started to notice physical pain and issues creeping up in my body. So having too much flexibility without strength to balance it will lead to physical issues, as we know. And a few years after this high time of practicing 2 hours a day and teaching pretty much every single day, a few years of this, and I started to notice some physical pain, especially in my joints. And it was the pain that alerted me to, I need to strengthen up a bit. I need to add a little bit of structure back into my body. And the interesting thing is that when I started to do that, I started to add a little more, even just focus on my muscles in my yoga practice, just bringing my attention to my leg muscles, making sure they're activated, making sure they're engaged. And I also played with a little bit of weight-bearing exercises to help me to awaken my muscles. Because sometimes when we go a long time without using our muscles, we don't have that mind-body connection with them. So I found adding a little bit of weight-bearing activity, some gentle weights and exercises with weights, helped me to awaken my muscles and know how and when to contract them or how and when to use them. And this reflects a time in my life, this is going back just a couple years now, where I was in my life playing with that dynamic energy of, okay, well, when can I actually have better boundaries? When should I have better boundaries? What does it feel like to hold a boundary here? What does it feel like to hold and contain my own energy and not just leak out everywhere into public spaces? What does it feel like to engage my boundaries? What does it feel like to be more assertive, to assert myself and to, just have that raw energy running through me? So now, going into present day. On the day of this recording, I would say I tend to lean a little bit more towards the tight side now. I think I've gone a little bit over to the other side where I have to a little more actively work toward that flexibility. I'm a little bit older now. I think that can anyway come into play. But also because I had to find that dynamic balance, I found at certain points I went all the way over to having very strong boundaries, to being very assertive in my needs and my boundaries, and to containing myself a lot more than I ever had before. And so my body is now reflecting those lessons. I've embodied those lessons. And now my practice is about coming back into balance. Balance is really where we want to be, right? Because when we're overly tense, when we're overly strong without flexibility, well, then we experience tightness and rigidity in our body, also known as tension, but we also are starting to overly control. Our energy system is starting to emit control, pressure, fear. And so the body, when it's tense and tight, is reflecting an inner state that is armored, that is overly protective. And this can lead to emotional stagnation and lack of intimacy with others, just being basically too rigid in who we are and too rigid in our sense of self, not really allowing ourselves to soften and merge with others when it's safe and lovely and a beautiful thing to do. So that's a little bit about my journey from being overly flexible with zero boundaries to tightening it up and almost too much the other way, becoming overly strong in my muscles, becoming a little bit tense in my body, and now returning back to that ever evolving state of balance. And again, that is always the key, is the balance, coming back into the middle, being flexible and being strong, both in our bodies and in our energy systems, in our emotions, in our mental state. It's both and. So maybe this inspires a little inner reflection for you. Maybe there are areas in your body in particular where you feel like you could use a little bit of strengthening. Maybe there are areas in your body where you feel like you could use a little bit of opening up. And this can reflect to you too, where in your life or where in your inner state you are maybe a little bit leaky, a little bit needing strength, and where you are a little bit too tightly bound. So for example, if you tend to be very, very tight in your hips, this can indicate that you could use a little bit more going with the flow, a little bit more emotional ease, a little bit more pleasure and creativity, as the hips are related to the second chakra, or the sacral energy center, which is related to our emotional life, our pleasure, our creativity, and so much more, but just to keep it simple. Or for example, if you are very tight in your shoulders, this could indicate to you that you are being a little too mentally rigid, or maybe you're not expressing your truth or speaking your truth as much as you could be, as much as you would like to be. And opposite too, right? It can go both ways. A little too flexible in the hips but lacking strength. Okay, maybe you are needing a little bit of containment in your life. Overly open in your shoulders but lacking strength. Maybe there's a need for some more assertive language, or being able to hold your beliefs and speak your beliefs. So there's a very wide spectrum, and again, I'm very much oversimplifying this entire talk just for the sake of having a little inspiring, reflective talk. But I hope that this does inspire you a little bit to tune in and listen and pay attention to your body. Again, this is not for the sake of judgment, because there is no right or wrong way to be. No one is right, no one is wrong, and because of that, there's nothing to judge. We are just bringing more awareness to how we are on this day and the stories that our body is telling us, because your body is a piece of nature. It is intelligent, and it is animated by all of these inner workings, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions. All of that makes up who you are, and all of it is integrated and working together. So let this be just a gentle invitation into bringing a little more awareness inward, and maybe asking your body today, how you can create a little more balance and inner harmony for yourself today. Remember, as we close out this episode, that your body isn't right or wrong. It is wise, and it's simply responding to your inner state. It's responding to your outer state in your environment. And so with lots of love, we observe and we consciously create our lives. You are the creator and the maker of your own life. You are the holder of your own power and energetic presence. And I want to celebrate you in that. Wishing you lots of love on your journey. And until next time, go well. Thanks for being here and listening, dear one. You can find all of my offerings at innerswim.com. And if you feel called to go deeper into this work, I encourage you to check out intuitive practices like womb yoga, energy healing, yoga nidra, and more. I can't wait to connect with you. I'll see you over at Inner Swim. With love, Jaylyn.